Today you get access to day 3 of our 4-day ornament build event. Now, if you missed out on day 1 or day 2, I will link them up above just like last time. But with that being said, today's video, day 3, will be led by superstar coach Jessie G, who is an active 7-figure Etsy print-on-demand seller and is crushing it with the product type of ornaments. Now, with this being said, Jessie has a very special knack when it comes to designing. So she's going to be walking through how to actually develop your designs for all of these different niches and micro markets on the platform. She's going to be walking through multiple live design tutorials, teaching you how to analyze the data and then build designs inside of tools like Canva, teaching you all of the tips and tricks on how to be successful as an active 7-figure Etsy POD seller. So you don't want to miss a second here. So without further ado, let's jump straight into day 3 of the 4-day ornament build event with Jessie G.
Before designing ornaments in our identified micro markets, we need to be clear on our ornament key design attributes. KDAs are the components and elements of design that create best-selling products in your HPPT, high potential product type, equipping you with the proper understanding to design each high potential product. First, we will identify a list of 10 to 20 general KDAs that we see repetitively throughout our ornament HPP list. So what does that mean? Essentially, in each product type, there's going to be these base art attributes or KDAs that are filling up the space. So we're going to extract them, identify them, and put them into a vision board that's going to inform our design process. Keep in mind, this is a common point of confusion when identifying your KDAs. They could be personalization, line art, think of like graphic elements, rainbows, heart icons, wreaths, watercolor graphics. They are not the micro markets themselves. So they're not like engagement, sports, moms, dogs, teachers, grandmas. They're the artwork that makes up the product type that people are putting on the products themselves. All right, extracting your KDAs. So how do you find out what your KDAs are? This is a manual process where you're going to start at the top of your HPP list. You should have your HPP list or you'll be working on it in the future. Start at the top of your original list. So I'm doing an ornament build right now, and I have my original list where I've identified the micro markets, and I have a duplicate where I filtered out the delete column and it's only the micro markets. Work with your original list, and you're going to work your way down for 200 or 300 of those top HPPs. And sometimes you can just hover over the product listing link and it'll show up, and you can just look and see what are the key design attributes on this. Or you might have to actually click into each one and open up a new tab to go look at it. Hover and glance or open the listing links for each of these products on your HPP list. And as you do this, you'll begin to notice the design attributes that are important to your customers. So we're just extracting all of the information, like what do people want on their ornaments? When we look at 200 to 300 from the top of our HPP list, we're going to know, and we're going to document it, and we're going to use that in our designs. So I wanted to give you, like, what does this look like in action for me? So when I was doing my KDAs for ornaments, I just start by writing everything down. So as I was hovering and looking, I just started brain dumping everything over here of what I was seeing. For pages, I would do that. And then once I was done, I synthesized it into, okay, what are the things I'm seeing again and again? Let's see. Categorize into the KDAs you're seeing over and over again. Yeah, so the ones that I have as an example today, and this is not exhaustive. I think that you could get up to 20 on your list, but like Connor said yesterday, I want to show you the process so that you can use it with other products moving forward. You never want to feel like you're just copying what other people are doing. Like, you want to be the leader of the product type. Yeah, of the product type you're working in. So the ones I brought out today from my list and from my research are personalization, wreaths, Christmas trees, gold, red, and green text, Santa hats, stars or ornaments hanging, a photo background, a full watercolor background, heart icons, and then specifically, I saw a lot of penguins and hedgehogs, and they were not necessarily in the title. I usually wouldn't put animals like that, but for this, I was seeing them used, and people were not searching for them necessarily, but they were still in the designs themselves. All right. So you're going to start with that list that you've identified. And when we have homework later, this is going to be part of your homework, is going through your HPP list and identifying 15 KDAs. You'll likely end up with 15 or more for the ornament product type. After extracting the KDAs from your HPP list, you will document them using a KDA vision board. And we're going to talk about 2 ways that you can do this. You're going to move your list of KDAs to the vision board, and then you're going to clearly define each KDA. I'm going to show you an example in a minute. You're going to add notes and have photos. Find the best and most representative examples of each KDA. You may look outside of your HPP list for the best examples. I got all of my images from inside of my HPP list because it just seemed like there was plenty to choose from. But if you need to go to incognito and look up like a mama ornament and try to find a specific KDA that's representative of it, you can do that too. And then I just screenshot it and then I pull it into I have a Mac, but then I just pull it into my vision board. All right, so I want to show you an example. And like I said, this one only has 10 on it. So there's 2 ways that you can go about this. This is a whiteboard. So a whiteboard on Canva, I prefer the whiteboard. And I find that people that are super methodical and they're driven by research, which is great because you make a lot more money, usually. Those kind of people usually tend to like breaking it out in just a normal Canva document. So breaking it out like page by page, it just helps the way that they think. And then other people, they like to see it all in one place. So the whiteboard is great if you want to see it all in one place and you're okay with like scrolling around. But other people, it gets way too messy and they want it to be super organized and they want to break it out page by page, which is great too. You can do that. So I brought my list in here. So this is what you'll start with, is your list. And then you're going to break it out section by section. So I've got personalization. It's better if you could do 6 to 9 images per, just so that when you're in here about to make a design, you have a lot of references that you can look at and get ideas for your design. And then you can write a little description at the bottom. Like on the wreaths, I put all sorts of wreaths. There's the soft watercolor wildflower ones as a 3/4 wreath or a half wreath or a full clip art holly wreath, multiple different micro markets. So any notes that you want to take, you can just put them in there. So that's an example. We're also going to touch on the fonts too over here. But I did not do an example of breaking it out page by page on a Canva doc, but you would just put like you would start with your list on page 1, and then page 2, you would have all of your personalization KDA, page 3, all of your wreath KDA, and you would break it out like that. Okay. You can utilize Canva whiteboard. So when you go to Canva, it's right here. You just click this little green button, or a normal Canva document and separate these out page by page. KDA vision board fonts. So people do this in a couple different ways. You're going to start at the top of your list and create verified font pairings, or you can break them into main categories, the main categories that Jesse shared in day 1. I think this is a good idea, is to just go off of these search categories that he shared in day 1 and have examples of each of them. But when I was doing this for my list, here, let me show you an example. when I was doing this for my list, I just had a bunch of fonts over here. So I would go to my HPP list and go straight down from the top to the bottom. And I created about 20 to 30 pairings that were from the top listings on my HPP list. And but I kind of like this method better because you have an image reference. So I have one from each of the main categories, and I pull in the image, and then I find fonts that are similar and I put it in here. And so this kind of becomes a template for you that you can draw from, because you know this person has made thousands of sales on this ornament. This font pairing must be solid. And then you can pull from it for your ornaments. But don't just do this many. You know, I would go ahead and do like 3 engaged options, 3 married options. And you don't have to keep your married fonts inside of the married micro market. Like, you know, they're a good font pairing. It might be able to pull it over into a different micro market. But doing this at the outset is going to make your design process a lot faster. Okay. Pro tip. So a lot of people have issues with fonts. I suggest that you just have a document inside of Canva, and when you find a font that you like and that you're using in your designs, just put it in there, and that's going to be a running list of fonts that you're using, so that it takes the guesswork out. You can just keep referring to that, because it is hard. It's not something that just comes naturally to a lot of people. I want to show you this tool inside of Canva. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on, let's say that I want to find a font that's similar to this. You can upload the image. I'm going to make it bigger and position it to the front. And then go to, let's see here, go to edit. And then right here where it says Magic Studio, scroll over to grab text. And I'm going to click on this one and grab. And it's going to find a font that is similar inside of Canva for me. So it did the top and the bottom, and the line spacing is a bit off. And they're not exactly the same, but that's one way that you can try to find a font similar. So it gave me for the top Josephine, and then the bottom is Halimum. So let's try it with this second one. Let me make it bigger so you can actually see it. Position to the front. Okay, edit, Magic Studio, grab text, and grab it. Let's see if there's something playful like this. Okay, yeah, that's not the same either, but it's similar. So this will work sometimes for you if you want to try that. All right, vision board fonts. We kind of went over that. So here's an example. Let me go back to the full, well, I need you to see the font names. Okay, so I pulled in the images. So this is one of my the top engaged ones on my HPP list, top married, top new home. And then I just went through and tried to find the font that was similar. Be super mindful of your letter spacing. Like this, for instance, this Poppins. If it was 0, it just does not look as refined and elevated as if you were to add the letter spacing. That's one thing that can set you apart from other people. So here I found the McCanley and the Poppins. This is Oakland. This is a font that I purchased from Etsy. And then I found Justin Haley. So this is not, it's not the same font as that, but it's got the same vibe. It's got the long tails. We're going to talk about glyphs in a little bit. Yeah, so you're just setting them up ahead of time. This Ovo, I love using this. It's inside of Canva. I love using it for like the dates, for the more formal ornaments. And oh, also, side note, sorry I didn't plan to go into all of this right now, but that's okay. When I highlight it and I go to effects, so this one you cannot bold. If I go to none, it looks quite thin. So I'm going to go to splice, and I'm going to change the color to the same color that I'm using in the font, and then make the offset 0, And then I can really control how thick it is with my thickness right here. I do that all the time to manage the thickness. Even if you can bold it, sometimes it'll be too bold. So if you're having issues with that looks way too thin, you can manually mess with it like that. And then we've got some other fonts over here, but yeah, that's the idea, is that you're going to pull designs from your HPP list. You're going to go ahead and create the font templates so you don't have to deal with it later. And that doesn't, when you're designing inside of a micro market, you may end up creating a different font pairing. You're not bound or tied to these, but it will give you a really good jumping off point so you don't feel stuck. Okay, let's keep moving. Inner circle pro tip, keep in mind that if you're utilizing Hello Custom, then your personalization option, so like the name, the date, the address, they need to be in a font that Hello Custom has. So Hello Custom has fonts built into it. It's not as many fonts as as Canva has, but make sure it's one of those fonts or it's a downloadable font from like Creative Fabrica or online. Because if you're using a Canva font and then it's not in Hello Custom and you can't find it anywhere online, you're not going to be able to use Hello Custom for that. Or it's going to be false advertising because your listing looks like one way and then you send the customer something that has a different font, which, if you find one similar, it's probably not a deal breaker, but I just wanted to mention that. All right, now getting into the design process. So how do we go about this? Number one, you're going to go to the micro market in incognito. Number two, you're going to identify the micro markets or the niche's value points. We're going to walk through this a couple times. You're going to identify the overused KDAs. You're going to identify the underused KDAs. And then you're going to pretty much craft your plan. You're going to determine your plan to add value and fill gaps in that market. No more copying people. All right, so on incognito, an incognito browser, which reminder, every time you go do a new search, you have to like exit out, create a whole new incognito browser. I typed in Big Brother, Little Brother Ornament, and these are my results. So it's on 2 pages. And so let's keep going so we can look at the value points. So what I determined the value points are. And by value points, I just mean, what does your ornament need to have on it, or what does your product need to have on it? Like it's a non-negotiable. It has to have that to bring value to the market. For this market, Little Brother, Big Brother ornament, I think it needs to have 2 characters with personalized names and the year, and then possibly the text Big Brother, Little Brother. Like, I can't just throw that out the window. That's the value point. That's why they're purchasing this item. Okay. So that's the value point, and you see it happening all over the place. So that kind of tells you, it's not part of the art per se or the KDAs, but it's what's happening again and again. Now the overused KDAs. So remember, you can pull up your vision board right now as you're doing this research, but what's being overused, everything green is a dinosaur. So dinosaurs happening 4 times. And I'm just looking at page 1 in the micro market right here, because this is where we're trying to land. This is where everyone's making their purchases. So that's where I want to be. That's why we're looking at page 1 only. So we've got 4 dinosaurs. They're not on my KDA vision board, but I'm going to note that it's being overused. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bears. So I'm not going to do bears. I'm going to avoid that. And then how many hedgehogs do we have? 1, 2, 3 hedgehogs. They're all pretty much watercolor elements. And here I put watercolor icons. Pulling on a sled is happening a lot. Hedgehogs, bears, dinosaurs, stars is happening a lot. So you're going to note that everything that's happening again and again, I would say like 3 times or more. That's what I don't want to do. Because why would they choose mine over these people's? Maybe because I have good photo templates. That could be the reason why, but I want to add value in another way. Underused KDAs. So this is where you would pull up your HPP list and you would look at them and it would jog your memory. Okay, what are they not using? And I put, they're not using wreaths, they're not using watercolor scenes that are a full background, they're not using hanging ornaments or line art doodles, stars. So let's say all of those are on my HPP list. Then I can quickly say, hey, they're not using any of that. So I could possibly use some of that in my design. And I know it's a proven art attribute that sells inside of this product type. So my plan, I'm going to, so you'll see on this page, there are 2 penguins right here, 1, 2, but there weren't more. And penguins are actually one of my KDAs because I was seeing it again and again on my HPP list. So when you're in the micro market, your mind is it should constantly be thinking, how can I add value to the market? Why would they purchase my ornament over someone else's? Also, side note, this is why Connor was talking about zooming in your ornament, because look, let's see how close that is to you. It's so much easier to shop, especially on your phone, rather than these further away ones. So that's why you want to zoom in and optimize for that crop. Okay, so my plan is I'm going to do penguins, watercolor penguins with line art doodle stars. So one of my KDAs was hanging ornaments or stars, and I'm going to use stars. They've already got stars happening in here, and I identified that as one of the overused KDAs. But the reason why I'm going to use it is because I have a set of stars that are made out of line art and they're a doodle. And I'm speaking to the people that did ornaments last year. You should always take into account what has sold well for you in the past in some instances. So I had a few ornaments that had these doodle stars that did really well. And so that becomes an element that I just put in my KDA vision board library. It's sitting at the bottom of my vision board. I can show you. And then where there's a gap, you can use that if it makes sense. And I don't mean to overcomplicate it. I just want you to know that when you have an element, like a floral element that's selling a lot, just keep it handy. And when there's a gap in the market for it and you can stand out with that element, why not add it in the mix? Because you have the proof that it's sold in the past. So I'm going to do my different stars with penguins and line art. So for the sake of time, I've already got my little graphics here. I got these penguins from Creative Fabrica. Primarily, I use Creative Fabrica and Canva to get my elements. This year, I have been utilizing ChatGPT and AI some, and I'm not going to get into that too much on this training, because I want you to know you can make everything that you need to just using these assets and then adding text to them inside of Canva and Creative Fabrica. But we are in the age of AI, so there are ways that you can make your own custom graphics too outside of this. So my plan was to have, okay, it's going to say big brother, little brother. I put this right here as a reference. So what I'll do sometimes is come over here and look at the market, and then if I want my text to look like this, then I can just copy and paste it over there, and it kind of acts as my inspiration. So I'll put little screenshots on the side of wherever I'm working. This template right here, I know someone asked about it yesterday in the chat. Just go to ICP and go to the catalog and to Ornaments in the catalog. Go to number 2 and you can click on that link. Don't go to the mockups. Go to number 2 and then you can download the template. It'll link you to Canva and you can download this. And then it's layered inside of Canva. So what I do is I just download it as a PNG and then re-upload it over here. Okay, so I'm going to place that in the back so I can see. This dashed line is where the edge of the ornament is. So you don't want your text to touch the gray, and then this gray on the outside is the bleed. So if you have like a full background, you want to make sure that it's going all the way there, because they are like with their hands, they're placing the graphic on the ornament. So you want to, give them a little grace there with the bleed. Okay, so we're going to place the penguins right here. And here's my little stars that I'm telling you about that I decided to use. So you come up with your plan first. I usually write in here, I'll put like value points, overused, underused, my plan, and you can write it out so you know exactly what you're going to launch into the market. These, let's see. Let me go to info. So you can right click on a graphic that you have, go to info. It says hand drawn doodle star. So I must have typed something like that into Elements over here to get this, like doodle star, but that's how you can figure out what is it actually. So if you want to find more doodle stars, just do that. Right click on your element and it'll tell you what is named. And then that's what you can look up over here in Elements. So I'm going to place them around. I'm going to use this Oakland font for the text, Big Brother, Little Brother. And then I'm going to address this later, but I would pull the edges of your font. Let me try to zoom in so you guys can see better. I would pull the edges of your box to the edge of your page you're designing on because it's going to help you center it. And then make sure it's center aligned. Big Brother, Little Brother, and then we're going to do the names. I had this font pairing, by the way, side note, inside of my actual vision board for Ornaments. It's not in this one, but I pulled it from that. So let's do Liam and Noah. Of course, I'm going to make it say something else, so I'm not copying them. This may be really obvious, but sometimes I will go and Google like what are the most popular kid names in 2025? Because you don't want to be using like Robert and Richard necessarily, because you just want to have some relevancy. So if it's for a kid, then just go look that up and use those names. And then I usually keep it to like 2 fonts per, but on this one, I don't love the way that the date looks. I think it looks a little bit too funny. So I'm gonna put it in this farmhouse pumpkin that I got from Creative Fabrica. And that just looks better to me. And it still looks like it's driving with this font. So yeah, farmhouse pumpkin, that's a great one if you want to jot that down. And then buffalo is used so much inside of the ornament space. It's friendly, but it's still a script, but it's not too feminine. All right, and I'm going to keep that outside of the gray. Sometimes I'll get close to the gray, but I'm going to put it right there. And that's my first design. So if we go over here, you know, there are the 2 penguins happening, but mine is completely different from them. And I'm using elements that I know are proven in other markets. So I hope that's clear to you guys. I know it's not like a crazy, amazing design, but I think it's going to sell for sure. And it's based on research.
All right, guys, real quick, if you're getting a lot of value out of this training and you really want to take your business to the next level, I have something super special for you. So there is a link in the description below where you can apply to work one-on-one with our active 7-figure Etsy print-on-demand coaches. Right now is the absolute best time frame of the entire year to invest in your business and to double down on growth. And the reason for this is due to the massive rise in search volume and the massive rise in conversion rate during the months of October, November, and December. So when you take the leap right now and you begin working hand in hand with an active 7-figure Etsy print-on-demand coach, your results can absolutely explode during the Q4 season. You can maximize the revenue and profit you are generating in your business and come into 2026 much better positioned at 3, 4, 5 times the level you're sitting at today. So I can't implore you enough. If you're going to take the leap at some point in time over the next few months, this is the time frame to do it. During the season where conversion is at a 2.5x level, where search volume is at a 15 to 20x level, when things are popping off the charts, this is the time to double down and make it happen. So if you are ready to take your business to the next level. Like I said before, I can't encourage you enough. This is the time frame to do it. It's the easiest time frame out of the entire year. The link is in the description below. You can apply there and you'll get a overview video sent to you if you are approved for our coaching program. And the last thing I want to share with you is that registration will officially close on October 1st, and anyone who applies after October 1st will be moved on to a wait list for when registration reopens at some point inside of 2026.
Okay, how to upload your design inside of Photopea to a smart object file. Let's make this a big screen again. I took screenshots of this just to show you guys. So let's say that you have a mockup that's a smart object and you want to know how to use it. Let's go through that. You're going to go to Photopea, unless you have Photoshop, but I'm going to go over with Photopea because it's free. Go to open from computer. On mine, I had to, well, I opened the document. It's open right there. I had, on this mockup specifically from the Spotted Dane, I had to deselect this little red eyeball icon and it hides that layer. So I selected that and then I double clicked right here. I think I have this on the next slide. Let me show you. Yeah, so I deleted that by selecting the eyeball. I double clicked on this square because it says it right there, double click. And this little square inside of it shows you that it's a smart object. It opened up a new tab when I did that. And then I went to File, Open in Place, and I opened my my design. It was already perfectly square, so it fit right in there. And I clicked the check mark. And then when I click the check mark, I click on File, Save Smart Object. And when I do that, it goes and it populates on my ornament mockup. And then I go to File, Export as PNG, and Save. And this, you don't have to mess with any of the settings. So there's your design on your mockup. And this is, it's more time consuming, but if you have a design that has a full background, it's going to look so much more realistic if you're using a smart object like this. But don't let it hold you back. You can still do the frames. You can still add the highlights. I just wanted to show you this option. Okay, our second example is going to be First Christmas as Grandparents. So we're gonna go to the micro market in incognito. We're gonna identify the micro market's value points, identify the overused KDAs, the underused KDAs, and then determine our plan to add value and fill gaps inside of that market. All right, so I typed in First Christmas as Grandparent Ornament. And let's see what's happening here. So first of all, let's look at the value points here. First Christmas as Grandparents. I know it needs to say that because that's the space it's in. And then it needs to have personalization and icons representing the grandparents and the baby. Those are the musts that it should have. So let's go back here. The overused. So everything that's green is got a Christmas tree on it. Christmas trees are being overused in the space. So I want to avoid Christmas trees. And then photos. Everything that's pink has a photo on it. So we've got 2 there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 there. So I'm not going to compete with these sellers. I'm going to try to do something different from what they're doing. And then snowmen. Snowmen is not on my HPP list. I mean, it's not on my vision board, but I'm just noting that the snowmen are being used a lot. Everything that's blue is a snowman. So I'm going to avoid doing a snowman. And those are probably people coming to the market and they see that it's doing well, so they do their own version. This is how we're different. So underused, what is not being used? The penguins again, hedgehogs are one of my KDAs. Wreaths are not being used very much. Hearts, Santa hats, or ornaments hanging. All of these are not being used. So this is where your creativity comes in, is like you have all of these options. You could do any of these, penguins, hedgehogs, wreaths. I would caution you not to combine like 5 different KDAs together because you don't want it to be super busy. But combine a couple of them together into something that looks nice and it's founded in your research. So my plan, I'm going to do hedgehogs on this one. They're going to be representing the grandparents and the baby. They're going to be wearing Santa hats, and I'm going to add some hanging ornaments. And let me get out of this and show you what I'm talking about with the hanging ornaments. So from my vision board, one thing that I noticed was this. I was seeing a lot on my list that had these hanging ornaments. And I thought, you know, that's a KDA in itself, in and of itself. So that's what I'm referring to with the hanging ornaments. So let's design it. Okay. I pulled over my inspiration. My inspiration is going to be this one. I like what it says, our first Christmas as grandparents, with the names right under it. So that's going to be that inspiration. And then I like these fonts. I want to do this typewritten font and then something that's a little bit more of a formal script. And then when I go, let's see here. Here's my ornaments. With my ornament research, when I did the calendars, I had this in my research for my fonts, and this is Special Elite typewriter font, and this is Nicanley. So it's been used for a calendar, but I think it would work for this because I know that they're using a typewriter font on this example, and that's what I'm pulling from. So I wanted to show you that I copied that font from my KDA vision board, and I'm going to move it over here. That's why this is here already. Okay, so let's put these little guys together. I got these, so the penguins before I got from Creative Fabrica. These I got from Canva. I just typed in watercolor hedgehog. So I need to determine, let's see, to front. Does the grandpa go on the right or the left? Because it's gonna say, I think I'm gonna make it say Nana and Papa or Grandma and Grandpa because that's normally how you say it. If I were to say Nana and Papa, the reason why I want to do that is because I want to communicate to the customer that, hey, you don't have to put Grandma and Grandpa on this. You can put your own custom weird grandma, grandpa name. You know how people have their strange grandparent names. I kind of want to communicate that visually. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put him over here. Let's see. Let me move our little zoom window. He's going to be here with his Santa hat, and I got to position that to the front. Position to the front. You can also use layers, but I'm old school. I just use arrange. And I'm going to place it on his head, and I just typed in watercolor Santa hat inside of Canva. And then I'm going to place the grandma over here and position her to the front. She's going to be a little bit shorter than him. And I feel like she needs eyelashes to make her look more like a girl. So I went to Elements and I just typed in eyelashes and I got those. So I'm going to make it small, position to the front. And of course it's not going to fit. So what we're going to do is we're going to crop it to this one. And then I'm going to tilt it and move it right over her eye. And then I'm going to move it down a little bit, hold Option and drag, and that's going to give me a duplicate. Go back to crop and get the other one. Crop it, and I'm going to change the angle and put it on this eye. Okay, and then zoom out a bit. I'm going to go ahead and group that so I'm going to select multiple. You can hold down Shift, so hold the eyelash, hold down Shift, click this one, hold down Shift, click her, and then group it. Where's the group button? I don't see it. Okay, hold on. Why is it not appearing? Usually the group button appears when you do that. That's okay. It usually will. I also noticed that, yeah, it's not appearing. Let me pull her over here and see if it appears. We're gonna group her. Okay, it's not gonna slow us down. Whatever, she is like that. I'm gonna put the hat on her and position it to the front. Okay, and then we're gonna move it down over her head. Make it look realistic with the placement, and make sure, like, this is where watercolor is such a big KDA inside of the ornament space. but I would never put like a vector clip art Santa hat on her. It needs to look like it's made from the same artist. So make sure that your watercolor kind of goes with the other elements that you're using. So I put that on her. And I noticed that the grandpa, he doesn't look as yellow as her or as warm as her. So sorry, let me get some water. Hold on. So what I'm gonna do, and it doesn't really matter, but I want to show you. I'm gonna click on him and go to edit and go to adjust, and then I'm gonna make his temperature come up, and it's gonna make him a little bit more yellow. And then he just looks a little bit more like the grandma. So he also doesn't have as much contrast. You see how he looks a little bit more faded than her? So I'll go to edit, adjust, and bring up the contrast a little bit too. And then they look more like each other. And then this little baby, we're gonna move the baby to the front. I'm gonna place the baby a little bit further down just so it looks like it's in front of them. And I like that it looks like the grandma's arm is right behind the baby. That's so cute. Okay, the baby, I might increase the contrast on the baby a little bit. Little bit. Okay, and then we'll put the little Santa hat on that baby. Position to the front. There's got to be a hotkey for that. And I'm going to have to cover that ear, but I'm okay with that. Yeah, I think that looks good. Then it'd be ideal if I could group all of them so that I don't have to worry about them moving. So I'm going to drag my mouse over all of them. And then I think what it might be, hold on, I'm going to pull this over. I think it might be this box. Position. Okay. No, it's not going to stop us. It is going to bother me.
Hey, Jesse, you can do
Yeah.
Command G and you'll group everything on your
Oh,
Mac.
thank you. How did I not know that all these
I'm so
years?
surprised, guys. I'm not a graphic designer like Jesse is at all, so that's just the one trick for you, Jesse. You're good.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Wonder if it's gonna group with my little frame I've got going on out here. Let me try to deselect that. Let me. Okay, it's locked. Okay, we're just gonna try it. Oh, it grouped with that. Oh, okay, it's fine. All right, we're just gonna keep moving. So the font, First Christmas as I wanted it to say Our First Christmas as Grandparents. And at first I was thinking, okay, I want it to be in this typewritten font because that's what's happening down here and that's my example. So I tried that first, Our First Christmas, Our First Christmas as Grandparents, and then I tried Grandparents in this font. And then I was thinking I could do the names in the typewriter font. So let's move this over here. Okay, so we're gonna pull the names down. I already did it here. So I'm gonna put, like I said, I'm gonna do Papa, and I'm gonna do Nana over here, and then I'm gonna do the little baby's name, Oliver. Or you could do like a unisex name so that they don't think it's only for a boy. I'm gonna make sure that's centered. So you probably know this, but when you're moving it around, it'll have a straight up solid purple line whenever it's centered. And I'm not seeing it here, but usually it does. Okay. For Our First Christmas as Grandparents. It didn't look right to me that this was the typewritten font though. So what I'm gonna do instead is try to use this font up here and see if that looks better. Kind of goes together better. Our First Christmas as Grandparents. Yeah, I think that does look better. I tried arching it. It's kind of hard to arch some scripts though because they get disjointed. So we're going to keep it straight. It's not in the way of the hole where the hole is going to be in the ornament. It's not touching the gray. And then we're going to add a date at the bottom, 2025. And usually on the dates with the letter spacing, the letter spacing, I will decrease it a bit and put it right there. Make it a little bit smaller. Because you always need to think of what are the most valuable parts of this? Would I want the date huge and as grandparents really tiny? No, I want as grandparents huge. And do you see, so, okay, our first Christmas is 67.5 and this is 78.9. So it looks a little bit thicker. So what I'm going to do is up here, I'm just going to do that whole effects splice, change the color to black, change the offset to 0, and then manipulate the thickness and just make it a little bit thicker because it'll look like it goes with this bottom one more, even though it's a smaller font. Okay, so the last step is going to be, with our plan, is to do the hanging ornaments. And so I'm going to go to elements over here. I'm going to type in hanging star decoration. And then look through the elements and see which ones I want to use. So I'm going to use this one, but I'm going to crop them and break them up. Let's see if I have it over here. No, I'm just going to show you how I do it. So I go to the crop button again, crop it over because I don't want 3 side by side. I want to be able to put them in here manually. And then I'm going to make it bigger and I'm going to make it go off the page, off of the gray circle. And then I'm going to duplicate it and move it over here. I just want them to be hanging at different heights. So this one I'm actually going to make lower. This one a little bit higher. Let's put a little one up here. And then maybe one more here. Move this one over a bit. Let's say that I want it all the way down here. I can duplicate it, crop it to where I'm just doing the top of the line. So I just have a line now, and then place it right there and group it, Control G. Yeah, oh my gosh, it grouped. Thank you, Jesse. Okay, so there we've got our hanging stars. And then hanging star decoration, scrapbook, sparkle stamps. So what I wrote over here, I already knew what elements I was going to use, and then I went to that info button and I was trying to see what I could prompt it over here. I'm gonna put sparkles doodle. That's not really what I was looking for. Yeah, let's just grab this one and then you'll get the idea. You know, when you're designing, you could take so much time working on it. Oh, side note, I didn't plan to tell you this, but as this gets smaller, I don't like that it's that thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edit shadows right here under effects and go to outline. And it's going to make it thicker. Then I can like make it super thick or less thick by adding that shadow. Little trick. And then I'm going to duplicate it and make it smaller and then put them around. I usually would find other sparkles so that they don't all look the same. But yeah, that's going to be our grandparent ornament based on our research. So we're going to have hedgehogs in the market with the hanging ornaments. And it's completely different from what everyone else is doing. But again, it's rooted in our research in our KDA vision board. Okay. Oh, I also wanted to mention this. So yeah, this is our method, filling gaps in the market and adding value. But I wanted to mention this one, our first Christmas as grandparents, was on, let me make this bigger. This is the one that was on my HPP list. So if we go back over here, you'll see I outlined it in gold right here. And if you notice, they're using this Christmas light string, which is a KDA, and no one else is using that. They're the only ones using it. And it has how many cells? When I pulled my data, it had 1,200 cells. So if a KDA is only being used 1 or 2 times, you can remake this. Like you can find your own string of lights with your own icons. You can use a different font, but use pretty much the same idea That's okay. Like don't copy it, make it in your own way. But it's sold 1,200 times and it's only showing up one time inside of my research. Yeah, so that's kind of like you want to fill a gap in the market, but if you're going to take someone's idea that's working, just revamp it, make it better, put it on your photo templates that are better than theirs, and your SEO that's better than theirs. Okay, guys, we're getting there. I wanted to mention one more example. I'm not going to walk you through it, but I wanted to talk about it because I feel like some people are going to think, okay, yeah, these are smaller micro markets, but what about married, engagement, the big ones? How in the world can I stand apart from other people inside of these huge categories? And I'm just here to encourage you that you can figure out a way to stand apart from them. So an example, like Jesse talked about on day one, an engagement ornament, but in the category of forest. That's what I'm going to be looking at with this research. So I went to Etsy and I typed in engaged forest ornament. Everything that's blacked out here is not in the forest like category or sub micro market. So I just blacked it out. This is the one that's on my HPP list. So let's just glance at it. And as you can see, everyone is doing something so similar. So they've got a watercolor graphic and it says engaged and it has the names. So this can pigeonhole you into thinking there's no way that I can stand apart from all of these people because they're all doing the same thing. But you can. So I would just encourage you, just keep looking at your vision board and try to think, how can I stand apart from these sellers? And the idea that I came up with when I was looking at this research, usually I would ignore anything that is not a sublimated ornament. But I noticed there's this one that's hanging on the tree, and there's this one, and they have art elements inside of them that is not happening on the other stuff, but they're still on page one. So you can just use use your creativity and see if you can pull from other ideas. Like this has got a tree, so it's still got the whole wooden aspect with a heart on it with initials. I think that adds a ton of value, and you could be the first person in the engaged forest space with that graphic on a sublimated ornament. Or this one, there's like a couple inside of a hammock, and I'm not seeing that happen anywhere else, but it's on page one for these actual, like wooden ornaments. So you could bring that into it, or you could use a wreath or something else from your vision board. But don't feel like you have to do what everyone else is doing because you don't. And then also, I would say I was designing for a hairstylist ornament a couple of weeks ago, and I felt like I didn't have any inspiration. I didn't know how to add value to the market. If that happens in isolated instances, you can go look at a parallel market just for ideas. So what I did is I went to go look at hairstylist shirts, and I found a phrase that was selling really well on a shirt, and it had not been put in the ornament market. And so I pulled it over. Now, I don't want this to derail you from this method, but I just want you to know that you can be creative. Like you can look at these wooden ornaments, you can go look at parallel markets to get ideas. But by and large, all of your research will be right there on page one, paired with your KDA vision board. Okay, the last thing that we're going to do is we're just going to go over a couple design tools, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So number one, Be Funky. This is a website that creates, it uses AI to create watercolor effects and all sorts of other stuff, but we primarily use it for watercolor effects for our ornaments, or it does oil painting as well. So I wanted to show you some examples. It's $15 a month. What you would do is once you're in Be Funky, you would go to Photo Editor and go to Artsy and then go to Watercolor. I usually use the top one, this one, GFX1. And once you click on it, this will pop up and then go to the settings tab. And that's where you can adjust the amount of watercolor, how it's altering your photo. The fidelity is going to be like how clear the image is. And then the variation is how much, how are you giving them permission to change up how much the watercolor, like what it looks like. So if you were to upload a human face, you wouldn't want the variation to go up because it won't look like them as much. But if you're doing it on a pet or a house, it's okay. Like here's some little examples of what I ran through. Be funky. Also, side note, it's not only for animals and it's not only for people who send custom photos to you. You could take this approach. So I had a first communion ornament that I was doing. And inside of Canva, this is what I found. So there's like a chalice with this thing. And it's not watercolor, it's vector. So I put that inside of Be Funky and it turned it into watercolor and it looks so much better for the ornament space. And I don't have to personalize it every time. I can just use it, like for a memorial ornament for a rocking chair. You could bring in an image and then convert it to watercolor. So there's a bunch of different ways you could use it. The second tool, shout out to Carmen, who I coach, who taught me this. This is awesome. Inside of Creative Fabrica, you can go to, this is for glyphs. So if you're having trouble with glyphs, especially if you have a PC or you're not tech savvy, in Creative Fabrica, go to tools right here at the top and go to Font Cloud. And you can upload your fonts here. So you would download them from Creative and then you would upload your font in here and it becomes a library for you. And then you just copy and paste your glyphs. So you would like copy the heart glyph and paste it into Canva. And it's easier than having to deal with whatever font book you have on your computer. Magic Expand. Okay, a couple more. Let's get in here and show you. So Magic Expand, we're going to go through a couple of these tools. I'm going to click on this photo as an example and go to Edit under Magic Studio, Magic Expand. This is the one that Edwin was talking about in the general on our Slack today. I'm going to click on Freeform. So let's say that someone sends me this and I want his arm to be in it. I clicked on Freeform and I'm just going to pull it out slightly and click on Expand. And hopefully it's going to give me the rest of his arm. Sometimes it doesn't work or it'll be wonky, but it's good for you to try out and see if it'll work. Of course, it's going to take a minute to load, but then it'll give you 4 options. So I didn't pull it over far enough, dang it. But yeah, it'll give me options for the rest of his arm. And you just get to pick which one you like the best. So last year, someone sent me a photo of a couple and the guy's elbow was cut out, and this is how I added his elbow back into it for the ornament. So that's Magic Expand. Then let's do, this one is Magic Eraser. So let's say someone sends you a photo, there's something in it that you don't want. I don't want this plant in it. Edit, Magic Eraser, and then click. Well, yeah, it'll let me click it. Then I'm going to click the plant. Nope, I'm going to go to brush. And then I'm going to highlight that whole plant in the shadow, click erase, and it should auto-generate the wall. And it did, it erased it, yay. So you can try that. Doesn't work perfectly every time, but that's an example. Magic Grab. Let's say that I want to grab the deer out of this, like remove the deer and only have the tree and the sleigh, or get Santa Claus out of this. I'm going to go to Edit, Magic Grab, and let's see, can I click on just him? Yeah, grab him. And it should autofill the sleigh behind him, and then I can just move him elsewhere. So yeah, so you can use that if you want to like use this reindeer in a different design. You should be able to grab it out of this or just get rid of Santa from the sleigh. Yeah. And then the last one right here is Image Upscaler. This is an image I made in ChatGPT. First of all, it's too dark, so let's go to Edit, Adjust, and bring up the brightness. And then I'm going to go over here. This is really important if you're using AI because the dimensions are somewhat small. So when you bring it over here into Canva, always go over here to apps. And then I have it under my apps, but you can search for it. It's called Image Upscaler and it's got a butterfly. Click on that. I keep it at 2x and click upscale, and it's just going to make it crisper. It's going to take out any pixelation. It's going to take a minute. And then the next thing we're going to touch on before we finish is just some spacing. And I think we already went over it, but we'll make sure. Sometimes it takes a minute. Sorry about that. Okay. And here you can look at it before and after. I can't really see that, so I usually just click replace and then I zoom in on it over here. There, it replaced it, and then I zoom in on it and it looks a lot crisper than it did before. And then this last one, this is like one of the biggest issues that I see with people that are designing. Let's move this over. Is they'll think something's centered, but it's not. So just always make sure that you're pulling these edges over so that you know for sure that it's centered. And also you could possibly have an extra space at the end. So just be mindful of that. If I'm putting text like this over another graphic, like you see right here, I want to outline it in white. So I'm going to go to Effects, Outline, change the color to white, and then increase the thickness. Looks fine for me because then it just gives it a little bit of negative space right there and it looks cleaner, like they can read it more easily. So I do that a lot of times. And then, for example, on the making it bolder, I already showed you this, but as another example. So this one, if I were to bold it, it looks like that. I don't want it that bold. So I'm going to take off the bold and go to Effects and Splice. You can outline it, but it gives you less control over how bold you're making it. So change it to black and then offset 0 and then work with the thickness. Okay, that looks good to me. I'm going to pull over the edges so I know it's completely centered and move brother right here. And this leads me to another issue, which is, let me show you this one. Yeah, right here. So I'm putting it on my mockup, but you can see my white outline, and that's annoying. I don't want to show my white outline. So I'm going to just do the background remover, and it's going to remove any white in my design. And then I can just put it right here on my frame. It looks pixelated because it takes a minute to load, but it'll clear up. Yeah, so that's one way. Because when we print on the ornaments, it's sublimation printing, so white will not print. So you don't have to worry about it showing up when it actually prints. But for your mock-up, you know, it's off white. So you need to remove that white in order for it to look like it's going to when they receive the ornament. All right, 2 workflow tips and then we'll be done. So, workflow tip number 1, break your sprint list down into categories. I've been doing this and it really helps me. So when you sit down to design, you can choose a set number to do from one category. So for example, this is a screenshot of my sprint list. And as I design it, I highlight it green so I know it's finished. But this is animals, this is sentimental, and then this is destination trip. Breaking your sprint list up into categories, it just helps you get in like a workflow so that you're not designing like a engaged ornament, then a kid ornament, and then a thank you ornament. You can kind of get in the same headspace and it's going to make you more efficient. I would do that. And then a second workflow tip, if you feel stuck or uninspired, just move on to the next design. Don't be a completionist or a perfectionist. Just leave it where it's at and then move on to the next one. And then some of these designs that you create are going to become design templates. So for example, the hanging ornaments that we did earlier, or the stars that I have from earlier, or these little hanging ornaments that I made, I can then put them over here into my KDA vision board. Down here, I have a little section. Let me zoom out. Here it's elements right here. Also, this was an ornament that's killing it, and so I kind of recreated these little sparkles that I can sprinkle in elsewhere where I see fit. But yeah, this becomes a library for you of these elements that you can pull from. So that's what I'm referring to. this design, for instance, will become a template for me, but be cautious. Make sure that there's an actual gap in the micro market that you're designing for before you deploy your template design. Because you could easily just say, hey, I want to speed this up. I'm just going to throw this in there. Make sure that you've gone and done your research and you know that this is actually a good fit for that market. Okay, your homework. Using your HPP list, you're going to identify a list of 15 or more KDAs for ornaments. And then bonus homework, create one font pairing for each of these search categories that Jesse had on day one. So baby's first Christmas, married, engagement, new home, boys, girls, pets, people, professions, baptism, and sports. Just go ahead and make a little font library.